Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Tonight, education workers announce plans to walk off the job. We'll bring you that story, plus tragedy in Korea has this filmmaker reflecting on what could have been done to prevent it. It's Halloween. That means candy, spooky stories, and a creepy Jeep. And a Windsor swimmer tops the podium. Celebration at the World Down Syndrome Swimming Championships in Portugal. We begin tonight in schools. People who depend on education assistance to help their children with special needs at the English Catholic School Board won't have them this Friday. Their union is defying stay-at-work legislation introduced by the province today. The CUPE union, which represents education workers like secretaries and custodians at school boards across the province, were in a legal strike position Thursday. Dale Molnar has more.
Megan Ball-Rigdon has two children with autism. They attend St. Rose Catholic School. Ball-Rigdon says it will be very difficult for them without the help of their education assistants, who will be off the job Friday.
Personally, I feel it's a little unsafe for children like mine who require a little bit of extra help. Unfortunately, myself, I'm medically vulnerable right now to infection, so keeping a mask on for them is really key to our whole family health, not just theirs. Washing hands after certain activities is also super important for them, and just having guidance to get through their day. Without those EAs, they can't do that.
I move that leave be given to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Resolve Labor Disputes Involving School Board Employees represented by the Canadian Union of Public Employees, and that now be read for the first time.
The province introduced legislation today to prevent the education workers from striking this Friday. It intends to use the notwithstanding clause to keep the eventual law in force despite any constitutional challenges. The government had been offering raises of 2% a year for workers making less than $40,000 and 1.25% for all others. But CUPE has rejected the offer. They came out in defiance of the legislation today.
It is a monstrous overreach. They have employed the nuclear option here. So on Friday, regardless of what this legislation says, our members will be engaging in a province-wide protest. That means no CUPE education worker will be at work.
As for CUPE, it is quite unfortunate that it has come down to this situation. But Ontario's nearly 2 million students have been through too much over the past 2 years, and we owe it to them to stand up for their education.
CUPE represents about 600 employees, including secretaries, clerks, and custodians at the Greater Essex County District School Board, but not the education assistants and early childhood educators. So those workers at the public board will not be affected by labor disruption. Education assistants and early childhood educators are represented by CUPE at the Catholic Board. The public board says it is working on a contingency plan, but schools will remain open. The Catholic board is also working on a contingency plan and says whether the schools remain open depends on what happens this week. Ball-Rigdon expects to send her children to school this week if there are classes. Despite the disruption in her life, she sympathizes with the needs of the education workers.
I can understand why they are demanding better. They deserve better.
The public board has activated a labor updates page on its website to report any new developments. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Ontario's finance minister says the province will release its fall economic statement on November 14th. He says Ontario is in good shape to weather the current global political and economic uncertainty.
The message that I want people to hear from me is that we have confidence. We have confidence in the people and businesses and the workers of Ontario, and regardless of what's around the corner, I'm confident we'll get through it together.
The minister was speaking at the Canadian Club earlier. Last week, the province's financial watchdog said it projects budget surpluses in Ontario for the next 5 years. But the Financial Accountability Office says the government is not being transparent about how it plans to spend money over the next several years. Funerals have begun for the victims of yesterday's bridge collapse in Western India. At least 134 people died, many of them children. Investigators are looking at recent repairs made to the bridge. Police have started to make arrests and have detained 9 people. Reporter Ishan Gurg has the latest from New Delhi.
This colonial-era bridge was recently renovated. Reports suggest that it was supposed to be shut for 2 more months, but it was opened prematurely. with more than hundreds of people flocking to the popular tourist attraction every day. On Sunday, when the bridge collapsed, more than 400 people are believed to have been on it. The capacity for the bridge was just 125 people. State government officials are saying that the bridge also did not have a fitness certificate. It means that the bridge was not officially cleared for reopening. Now, state authorities have launched an investigation with a 5-member team and are saying that they will press charges of culpable homicide against the people who are found responsible. Search and rescue operations ended after nearly 20 hours on Monday, and they will resume again on Tuesday. In the meanwhile, government officials from the state and the federal government have been visiting hospitals in the state where victims are still being treated. At the same time, opposition parties are saying that the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party in the state should take action and should also take responsibility for the bridge collapsing. They are saying that it was not an act of God, but it was rather an act of fraud. Meanwhile, the state government officials are saying that the time right now is to focus on relief and rescue efforts. The government has announced a compensation of nearly 10,000 Canadian dollars for the family of the deceased and about $800 for those who've been injured. Ishan Garg for CBC News, New Delhi.
To South Korea now, where a week of national mourning has begun following a deadly stampede at a Halloween street party. Mourners gathered at a memorial service for the 154 people who died on Saturday. Many people paying their respects carried white chrysanthemums, the flower of mourning in South Korea. The victims were in a crowd of about 100,000 people on the streets of a Seoul entertainment district. They were killed when the massive crowd pushed into a narrow alley, crushing those unable to escape. As the investigation into the tragedy begins, authorities are being criticized for an insufficient police presence and a lack of crowd control at the street party. The government has promised a thorough investigation and to support families of the victims. The tragedy hits close to home for Koreans in Windsor, particularly a local Korean filmmaker who just released his documentary about another public safety disaster that claimed the lives of many young people in Korea, the ferry tragedy of 2014. Min Bae sends his condolences to the families and says it's been devastating to watch the events unfold from afar.
It can be preventive accident. I mean, now it's well, it's like I feel really like a sort of overlapped because I made film about the tragedy, right? Mm-hmm. And then this incident happened, and then it's almost like my first question is why, and then I started digging the like other source of news, and then I noticed that they didn't do any preventive measures like. Usually, like I don't know if you recall, like when Korea had like an impeachment protest, 2017, like that was like millions of people gathering, and not even a single incident happened.
And so obviously this is bringing up a lot of memories of the ferry disaster, where again, another situation where a lot of young people died, and it's another public safety disaster. Given how closely you followed that, I guess, what can you say about how these two public safety tragedies impact a country and impact a community?
They are, yeah. I mean, it's one from the like public, the transportation. But we still don't know the cause of this ferry. But this one, it's less complicated, incident, right? Basically, like after they lifted all the restriction, so they should have like some sort of indication. It might be like turn out this bad, right? It's system broke. That's how I see it. It's not only like the bottom, it's actually from the top.
I know that there's a word in Korean, han, that represents the sorrow that Koreans feel. It's very specific to Koreans. How are Koreans grieving right now?
I think a lot of, even now, a lot of my friends, it's just worldlies, like a lot of them, some of my friends, they own their business, they voluntarily closed, and they just, I guess they just individually just grieve, about this whole tragedy. Yeah.
Have you talked to other Koreans in Windsor about how they're feeling?
Yeah, just a few friends, and they are all same feeling. Like they feel like it's really, even though physically we are here, but our heart is like all there, right? So they are definitely have same feeling, like they are heartbroken, right? So it's sad. Yeah.
Let's take a moment here to take in this breathtaking shot by Steve Bureau. He posted it on Facebook, capturing the fog from above using a drone. Really beautiful shot and a bit spooky, which is fitting for this time of year. It is the end of October, of course, and all month long you've seen bright oranges and reds. Now it's time to settle into a darker mood. Today is Halloween, and that means it's time for a ghost story. CBC's Stacey Janzer takes you on a tour of the oldest built house in Amherstburg and shares some of the spooky stories of what's happened inside.
Amherstburg's oldest built house sits here at the corner of Murray and Dalhousie Street. It now functions as the Amherstburg Tourism Office, but before it was an important house in the War of 1812, an infirmary and a trading post. And some of those spirits may remain. Welcome to the Gordon House. This was originally the birthing room, and the manager here says legend has it that you can hear crying babies come from this room. And they keep a small black pram here in this room as a reminder of what it once was. And now, as you can see, holds historic dolls. And although those may be a little creepy, the manager, Ann Rhoda, says when she first started coming to the office in the morning, no one else would be here. And when she opened the door, she would hear a large glass breaking upstairs. And beware, walking up the stairs may come with a little bit of help. The manager here says sometimes you can feel wind go up your back as you're going up the stairs. Finally, Rhoda said about 6 years ago, the Gordon House was opening up the basement, and some of the spirits may have taken notice because up here in this office, there was a second desk. One worker came in to see that desk hovering above the ground and then slam back down. Now, Rhoda says this worker is very fact-oriented and probably wouldn't believe it if she didn't see it for herself. And yes, she did continue working in the office. Amherstburg is home to some of the oldest houses in the region, and some may come with a ghost or two. Stacey Janzer, CBC News, Amherstburg.
And kids are probably already knocking at your door doing some trick-or-treating. We all know that too much candy is bad for our teeth, but is there a range? Well, it turns out some candies are worse than others, which kind of means some are better than others. To find out more, we spoke with Dr. David Hong, a dentist at Windsor's Cabana Dental.
Plain chocolate in terms of, its kerogenicity or its cavity causing properties, chocolate tends to dissolve quite quickly. So it's not, the worst thing in the world, but it is a sugary substance that bacteria can metabolize and cause, acid decay and cavities. So, like I say to all my patients, with any, treats, candies, whether it be chips, chewy candies or chocolate, moderation. There's also even things you can do before they eat candy. I know, eating cheese provides a vitamin-rich substrate along the teeth that can help the teeth, be protected from, decay while they, eat candy. Obviously, I always tell all my parents, if we're gonna eat candy, make sure we're swishing with some water. If they have candy before bed, I always tell them, make sure we're waiting at least, a half an hour before we're brushing their teeth, because we don't want that acid content and, the mechanical wear of, brushing your teeth to cause further destruction. But there are certain candies that cause a higher acid content, or they're more kerogen than other candies. Chips, chewy candies, that can stick onto teeth, and get into crevices. Those can cause a significant more acid content in your mouth, and subsequently more decay. Jawbreakers always present the risk of potentially fracturing or cracking or chipping teeth. And the other thing is when children use jawbreakers or hard candies, they tend to be sucking on them for quite some time. Acid content and sugary substances, those can present a little problem because they're the acid content's so high for such a long period of time. Nuts are a good, healthy option. They're, not too carcinogenic. So I definitely recommend nuts if possible, assuming allergies are not an issue there. I'm probably going to give sugar-free suckers. They have xylitol, which the bacteria cannot metabolize, so it's a little more teeth-friendly.
Let's take a live look outside there at your trick-or-treating conditions. This evening, there is drizzle in the forecast, but we'll find out exactly what is in store after the break. That's when Colette will join us. Welcome back. The World Down Syndrome Swimming Championships have wrapped up in Portugal, and a Windsor woman really swam away from the competition. The CBC's TJ Deere dives into Julia Lane's rise to the top.
Julia Lane. Julia Lane needs the ball to win.
That's one of the 6 medals won by Julia Lane for Team Canada at the World Championships.
I am proud of my times and how I represent Team Canada.
Julia's rise has been meteoric, from claiming wins to world records. This is what her accomplishments over the last 8 years look like. Her parents, Brian and Cynthia, built a team to support her career.
From the nutritionists to the swim practices and private coaching, we got her engaged in CrossFit to make her stronger, just so she'd have that opportunity at the World Down Syndrome Swimming Championships.
Their determination to see Julia succeed saw her parents create a GoFundMe page to get her to Portugal. Over $3,800 was raised.
It was just very touching that everybody wanted to put, to give what they could to in her efforts to make it to the podium.
Representing Canada, Julia Lane.
Julia is now aiming to compete in the 2024 World Championships, which will be held in Turkey. She hopes her accomplishments inspires others, saying anyone can succeed by working hard and trying their best.
Thank you for everyone who supported me to my journey to the podium. I want to say thank you so much to watch me, and I love my life now like this.
TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
Colette Kennedy is here now for a spooky weather forecast. Colette, happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween, Katarina. I love this. Such a great holiday.
It really is. And I hear that you had a bit of a spooky encounter recently. So talk us through it.
Well, I did. I actually had a rather scary encounter on the weekend, in fact. My husband was grilling and he left the back door open, as he often does, and I complained, but this massive bee got in the house, and I have never seen a bee this big in all my life.
Oh my goodness.
Look at the size of this thing.
That would have given me a fright too, Colette. Oh my goodness.
And to be fair, I think that cap is on backwards, but there was no way to get it on the right way. So this is my, well, he was a foster dog. We very recently welcomed him into the family, and he's been officially adopted by us. So that is our big
What's his name?
bumblebee.
What's his name?
Bogey, like as in
Bogey.
golf. Like sometimes he's bad, he's a double bogey, he's a triple bogey.
He's
but
precious.
usually he's pretty good. Yeah, and he tolerated that, especially I find for folks at home, pumpkin treats, so the pumpkin flavored liver treats, maybe they'll wear it for 5 minutes or something like that. Anyway, I know there are already some folks that are like trying to get out the door. I get that, or maybe already have gone, but if you're still watching with us and just want to see that forecast, we're talking about the temperature being nearly steady, 16, 15 degrees, still a little fog and drizzle. So I know we always want to be careful because with the sun setting that you're out in the dark, but fog, that further reduces visibility, so be very cautious and just kind of take it easy, look both ways, and then do it again. Make sure before you cross the street. There's a look at those temperatures. Speaking of some milder conditions, I mean, we have seen a lot of fog development with the sun setting earlier. We have the longer nights, and so then we're finding still the ground and the water body is still warmer, but then the air cools down, and we see this fog developing. So, well, again, tonight, not for Windsor, but not too far off to the east, fog advisories in place once again. And even outside of that advisory, we can have some areas where things are a little tricky on the roadways. In some cases, not even reaching the ground, fairly light in nature. This hasn't been a terribly strong storm, but as it rotates through, you get pockets with a little bit heavier rain. So that's why we were seeing some of our ghosts and goblins with that extra layer. Well, why wouldn't a ghost also wear a slicker if they happen to need it? There you go, though. Here's what happens as we move through the overnight into tomorrow. Once we can get rid of fog, cloud cover, we get into more clearing, the sun coming out, and the temperature rising. And that's really going to be the trend for the next several days. Nothing scary about November, as mild temperatures overnight tonight. And mild temperatures, I didn't grab this board from back in May. This is the November 5-day forecast.
Yeah, no kidding. Had to do a little double take there.
Yep.
That's,
so did
I'll
I
take
after
it.
I made it. I'm like, no, that is my forecast.
Yeah, that's for real. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
And we will have more Halloween content for you coming right up. Have you seen the Jeep driving around Windsor? You know the one. Green with the black roof and the skeleton hanging out the window, the baby dolls hanging from the top. Yeah, we saw it too. Nav Nanoa took a spin with owner Hannah McMahon and met her goose Diesel.
And the babies, like, tell me more about the babies. Why the babies?
I think they're just creepy. I love it.
What's your favorite thing on the Jeep?
I'd have to say my spider.
Spider in the back?
Definitely spider on the back. His legs kind of move in the wind.
So what inspired you to want to deck out your Jeep?
I've always loved decorating my house, but we've just never really had a lot of room for it. And I love my Jeep, so why not put the two things I love together into one?
And Halloween's your favorite time of the year?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I just love just anything spooky. I love bats. Bats my favorite animal.
So when you think of the actual decorations that you're putting on your Jeep, do you have an idea usually in mind, or do you just typically get a bunch of props and figurines together and just sort of use this as your blank canvas?
Well, lately it's been a blank canvas, but I'm planning on doing next year as just a skeletal theme, something to do with a cemetery.
What kind of attention does this car get when you're just running an errand, like going to the grocery store?
Everyone's staring. I get a bunch of double takes. I get kids screaming, either of joy or fear. I love, honestly, seeing people happy. I love making their days. Like, you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah. What is it like for you to be able to do this every year? What does it mean to you?
Oh, I honestly love doing it. Like, it just makes me so happy to see everyone loving it. Just to decorate, honestly. I can decorate it the way I want, with dead babies and all.
That's so cool. You've seen the duck, and Colette shared her dog's costume, so let's end with animals and their human companions dressed up and taking the stage in Florida. So their appearance was part of a costume festival in Key West, and the theme, cult classics and cartoon chaos. Costumes on display range from pirates and mermaids and unicorns, characters from Beetlejuice. The masquerade merriment wasn't just for fun. Proceeds will benefit a local animal welfare charity. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Happy Halloween, everyone. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.